Argument Strategies Part 1, Appeal and Approach. Before we can talk about argument strategies, we have to look at the difference between an argument and a quarrel. Up till this point, you may have used those two words interchangeably, but academically, there's a major difference. So what is a quarrel? A quarrel is an unfriendly argument, disagreement, altercation, or fight. The kind you might have had with a bully on the playground, or a friend who borrows your stuff and never returns it. So what's an argument? Well, an argument, on the other hand, is an expressed opinion grounded in logical, structured evidence that attempts to convince the reader to accept an opinion, take some action, or do both. You might make an argument to your professor that you deserve a higher grade in his or her class. When making an argument, there are three basic ways to appeal to your reader. The first is rational appeal. Rational appeal is based on facts, evidence, reason, and logic. The next is emotional appeal. Emotional appeal attempts to incite emotion in the reader, such as hope, excitement, anger, fear, disgust, or pity. And finally, ethical appeal, which is established by the reader's opinion of the writer, based upon the writer's sense of reliability, fairness, and trustworthiness. First, let's talk about rational appeal. The strongest arguments rely on rational appeal. Society expects us to rely on rational appeal. This includes both academic and professional circles, so your classes and your career. This means that when you appeal to reason in an argument, you present your reasons and evidence in such a way that if your readers are reasonable, they will likely agree with you, or at least see your position as plausible. Writers using rational appeal tend to keep their cool, not getting overly mean, hostile, or angry. Rational appeal comes in several forms, including established truths, such as historical, scientific, or geographical facts, which can often provide indisputable support for an argument. Opinions of authority, such as experts in their field, primary source information, such as interviews, surveys, or experiments, and statistical findings. While rational appeal should be the foundation of your argument, emotional appeal can offer powerful reinforcement by swaying the hearts of readers. Emotional appeal often comes in the form of stories, scenes, events, or individual accounts that arouse a strong emotional response. For example, to garner support for an anti-war movement, a writer may tell the true story of a soldier that died at war, leaving behind a wife and young child. The problem with emotional appeal is that, without rational appeal, it risks being highly illogical or easily defeated by reason. It also risks being manipulative if not supported with reason and fact. Of course, all that said, emotional appeal can be very effective when paired with rational appeal. And finally, ethical appeal. Ethical appeal revolves around the reader's perception of the author. It's most typically determined by reliability, fairness, honesty, and trust. Emotional appeal does not accomplish much by itself, but most arguments won't be heard without it, because if your audience doesn't trust you, they won't listen to what you're trying to tell them. Ethical appeal is created by voice, tone, honesty, support, and the writer's approach to the argument. Ethical appeal is weakened by strong bias, uncontrolled hostility, or manipulation of the truth. Now that we've explored the three different types of appeal, we can explore how an argument functions. A basic argument consists of three things: an opinion you want to support, this becomes your thesis; your reasons for that opinion, which makes up the body of your argument; and evidence that backs up your reasons. This is the support for your argument. In an argument paper, every paragraph of the paper should have a main topic that supports your thesis statement. Every sentence and example in a paragraph should support its main topic. Therefore, everything in the paper should be supporting or aiming to prove the thesis statement. If it is not, it does not belong in the paper. Rational appeal includes three different types of reasoning strategies. These strategies each approach an argument differently. We'll talk about each in greater detail. They are induction, deduction, and analogy. Induction is the most common approach to an argument. We use induction when we support a claim with specific evidence, or, simply put, when we propose an unproven idea supported by pieces of evidence. Most of our arguments are supported inductively. Induction shows that our conclusions are possible, but rarely proves them. The likelihood of a supported idea being accurate depends on the strength of the evidence. Here are some examples. Look at the argument that a defendant is guilty because his fingerprints are on the murder weapon. It doesn't prove his guilt. There could be other reasons his prints are on the murder weapon, but it certainly makes the possibility more likely. Another example. You'll enjoy watching a new movie that your friend recommended. It makes sense that you might have similar tastes in movies as your friends, but it's definitely possible that you won't like every movie your friend recommends. When using induction, as you probably will when writing your paper, state your main point, present your evidence, demonstrate the credibility of your evidence, then show how the evidence fits the conclusion you want your readers to reach, that is, your main point. This can be a valuable model to follow when crafting your outline or paragraphs. Another main strategy is deduction. Deduction demonstrates how a specific conclusion follows logically from some initial premise about which people might agree. Or, simply put, deduction uses existing facts to prove new facts. Deduction relies upon the use of premises. A premise is an assumed truth which supports a proposed conclusion. If you think readers will doubt your premise, you may need to spend time proving the validity of your premise. Deduction often uses premises, a major and minor, to form a syllogism, a type of deductive reasoning that tries to prove a conclusion. For a syllogism to work, both premises must be true and the conclusion must logically follow. For example, if we know that no dogs have feathers, and if we know for a fact that our pet Spot is a dog, then logically, as long as both previous statements are true, we know for a fact that Spot does not have feathers. Another powerful form of deductive argument is Reductio ad absurdum, which means to reduce to absurdity. Reductio ad absurdum challenges an idea by pushing it to its logical end, and is therefore effective when the consequences of an idea's logical end are problematic. Consider the position that the government should impose no restrictions on the public's right to bear arms. To counter this, one might point out that, taken to its logical extreme, such a policy would allow individuals to own bazookas, cannons, and nuclear bombs. This absurd result makes it clear that certain restrictions should apply to our right to bear arms. The question then becomes, where should we draw the ownership line? The final approach we'll be looking at is analogy. Analogy compares two unlike things or situations. Analogies assume that because two things are similar in one or more ways, they are also alike in other ways. Analogy is a weak form of rational appeal. They never prove anything, but they often aid in understanding, help explain, and show probability, making them very useful. For example, consider the analogy, smoking a cigarette is like playing Russian roulette. It's a needless risk and only a matter of time before it kills you. While there may be a connection between smoking and cancer, it's actually very different than playing Russian roulette. The writer of the phrase is merely trying to liken smoking to a ridiculously dangerous action in hopes to prove a point to the reader. It doesn't prove smoking is fatal, but it gets the message across to the reader. Thanks for watching the first video on argument strategies. Until next time.